Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. My name is David. I serve in the military, a life of discipline, sacrifice, and long stretches away from home. For 2 years I was deployed overseas, pushing through every grueling day with one thought keeping me going. Ashley, my fiancée. She was my world. The one thing I looked forward to, the one person I couldn't wait to hold again. I dreamed of coming home to her on my next leave, of seeing the look on her face when I surprised her. I had it all planned out. The perfect homecoming, the perfect moment. I was going to ask her to marry me, but life had other plans for me. 3 months before that leave, I had taken another short break from deployment. It was brief, but it reminded me of exactly what I was fighting for. I got to spend some incredible time with Ashley, and it felt like no time had passed at all. We spent our days together doing the simple things we loved. Then a sense of certainty filled my chest. When I came back, I would finally ask her to marry me. We had been through so much together, and I was ready for the next chapter of our lives. On the day I had to leave, Ashley and James, my best friend, came with me to the airport to say goodbye. James and I had been inseparable since we were kids. We went through everything together: school, sports, and even joined the military at the same time. He was like a brother to me, and I trusted him completely. I remember telling James, "Take care of her, man. I'll be back before you know it." And to Ashley I said, "It's just 5 months, baby. I'll be back soon. Love you." Ashley squeezed my hand, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "I'll be here waiting for you," she whispered, her voice wavering as she held me a little tighter. I could feel the weight of the goodbye between us, even though we tried to keep it light. The days apart were always the hardest, but I kept telling myself it would only be a few months before I'd be home again. And then I'd make everything right. It was planned for me to take my next leave 2 months later, but I couldn't wait to get back home to propose. So I took an early leave, excited to give her the surprise of a lifetime. Instead, I was the one who got a shock. I didn't tell Ashley I was coming back earlier. I wanted it to be a special moment she would remember forever. I'd been thinking about it for months, and now the time had finally come. I grabbed a cab straight from the airport, making a stop first to pick up the wedding ring I had ordered just before I left. It felt surreal, holding it in my hands after all this time. As I was leaving the jewelry store, I ran into Lucas, another good friend of mine. We hadn't caught up in a while, especially with all the time I'd been away. "David, man, is it really you?" he said, his face lighting up as he walked over to shake my hand. "Yeah, man, it's me. Just got back." "Good to see you, bro. How's everything been?" "Same old. Long months, but I'm back now. Can't wait to get home to Ashley." "Yeah, I bet. You've been gone for a while," Lucas said, a friendly smile on his face. I grinned. "I'm planning on asking her to marry me when I get home." Lucas raised his eyebrows in surprise. "Man, that's awesome. She's lucky." "I'm the lucky one," I said, holding up the ring. "I've missed her more than anything. I just want to get home and surprise her." "She told me you've gone out a few times over the past few months," I continued. "Yeah, we've all gone out together a few times. James, Ashley, and some of the other friends," Lucas replied. He paused for a second, looking a little more thoughtful. "But she's been hanging out with James a lot more the last month or so. I don't know, maybe it's nothing, but it's been a little more than usual." I nodded, not thinking much of it. "Yeah, they've always gotten along well, that's cool. Nothing wrong with that." "I guess you're right," Lucas said, giving me a reassuring smile. "Well, good luck with the proposal, man. She's gonna love it." "Thanks, man. Catch you later," I said before getting into the cab. On the way home, I stopped to pick up flowers and a bottle of champagne to celebrate the occasion. I couldn't wait to get back to be with her again. When I arrived, I saw James's car parked outside. I didn't think much of it at first. I just couldn't wait to get inside and surprise Ashley. But when I stepped through the door, the house was eerily quiet. No one was in the living room. I walked further in, wondering where they both were. And then I heard it. Moans, coming from the bedroom. My heart dropped into my stomach as I quietly walked toward the sound. I reached the door, my hand trembling as I pushed it open. There they were. Ashley, James, in my bed. For a second I couldn't breathe. It felt like someone had just stabbed me in the chest. Ashley gasped when she saw me. She scrambled to pull the sheets over herself. "Oh my God, David!" she shrieked. James just sat there, frozen, his eyes wide like a deer caught in headlights. I dropped the flowers and the champagne bottle I had been holding. They hit the floor with a sharp clink and a dull thud. "You son of a—" I lunged at James, grabbing him by the throat and slamming him against the wall. "David, stop!" Ashley screamed, pulling at my arm. James coughed, struggling against my grip. "Man, please, I'm sorry." I let go and stepped back. My whole body was shaking. "Sorry?" I spat. "You slept with my fiancé." "My fiancé, James. How could you do this? We were like brothers." He looked down, ashamed. "Good. He should be." Ashley reached for me. "David, please." I pulled away. "Don't touch me." Tears streamed down her face. "It wasn't supposed to happen." I let out a bitter laugh. "Oh, really? So what, you tripped and fell on him?" She sobbed. "I was lonely. For the last 2 years you've rarely been here. I missed you. I needed someone." I clenched my jaw. "What do you mean you needed someone? What about me? You couldn't wait a few months? Is this how desperate you are? That you couldn't hold on until I got back?" James started putting his clothes back on, shifting awkwardly as he tried to gather himself. "Man, we didn't mean for it to happen. It just—" But I cut him off, my voice low and dangerous. "Shut up. Just shut up." Without wasting a moment, I grabbed him by the shirt and threw him out of the house, slamming the door behind him. Then I turned back to Ashley, my eyes cold as ice. "How long?" I gritted my teeth. "How long has this been going on?" She hesitated. "How long, Ashley?" 8 months. I staggered back, feeling like the floor had been ripped out from under me. 8 months. While I was overseas, sending her letters, missing her, dreaming about her, she was with him. I nodded slowly, the weight of it sinking in. "I see." "I was going to ask you to marry me, Ashley," I added, my voice breaking despite my attempt to stay composed. "That's why I came home early. I was ready to take that next step with you." She froze, her eyes wide with shock. "David, But I couldn't hear it anymore. Not her excuses, not her explanations. I walked to the closet, grabbed a suitcase, and started throwing her clothes inside, stuffing them in roughly. Ashley panicked, grabbing my arm desperately. "David, wait! What are you doing? Let's talk about this." "There's nothing to talk about," I said coldly, my voice tight with anger. She grabbed my arm, her tears falling. "I love you." I jerked away. "No, you don't. You loved having me there, but the moment I wasn't, you found someone else." Her voice cracked, full of regret. "It was a mistake, I swear. I never stopped loving you." I zipped up the suitcase with finality and threw it toward the door. "Here are your things. Take them and get the hell out of my house. We're done." Ashley grabbed my arm one last time, her voice pleading. "Please, David, please don't leave me. I'm sorry." I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman I once loved more than anything. Now all I felt was disgust. "You made your choice, Ashley. Now live with it." And with that, she walked out. I couldn't believe what had just happened. Everything I had built in my mind, everything I thought we had, shattered in an instant. My chest tightened, and for a moment, I just stood there, staring at the door she had walked out of. I needed to make sure she couldn't come back in. So I called a locksmith to change the locks, preventing her from having access again. It felt like the only thing I could do to regain some control over the situation. That night I called Lucas and told him to meet me at a bar, hoping he could offer some kind of comfort or distraction. When I got there, I told him everything. His face was a mixture of disbelief and sympathy. He couldn't believe it either. "Man, I'm so sorry," he said, shaking his head. "That's brutal." The next day, I couldn't stand being in the house alone. I needed to be with family. My parents lived about an hour away in the next city, so I drove there, hoping to find some comfort in their company. When I told them what had happened, their jaws dropped. They were just as shocked as I was. My mom pulled me into a tight hug, and my dad just shook his head, unable to say anything for a long time. But even after that, the chaos didn't stop. Ashley bombarded me with calls and texts. She apologized over and over again, begging for a second chance, telling me how much she regretted everything. But I didn't respond. James started calling and texting too, trying to reach me, probably to explain himself, but I didn't pick up. I couldn't hear either of them. There was nothing they could say that would fix this. They had made their choices and now they had to live with them. 2 days passed before I could bring myself to go back home. The house felt like a foreign place, empty and cold. But it was where I needed to be. I couldn't stay at my parents' house forever, and I needed space to figure things out, even if it meant facing the pain head-on. That evening I was sitting on the couch trying to distract myself from the chaos in my mind. The quiet was almost unbearable, but at least it was mine. Then, I heard a knock at the door. I froze, my heart instantly racing. I wasn't ready for this. I walked over to the door, my mind already running 100 miles per hour. I looked through the peephole, and there she was, Ashley. My hand hovered over the doorknob, but I couldn't bring myself to open it. The emotions that surged through me were too much. Anger, hurt, betrayal. It all came flooding back. I gritted my teeth and yelled through the door, "Leave, now." I heard her voice then, soft and shaky. "David, please. I'm sorry. Please, just let me in. We need to talk." But I didn't say anything. I couldn't even look at her anymore. What was there left to say? Then came the sound of her sobs muffled through the door. I stood still, every inch of me wanting to open it, to do something, anything. But I knew I couldn't. I couldn't forgive her. Not after everything. The sobs continued for a while, a painful reminder of what she had done. I heard her footsteps retreat, but I didn't move, didn't let my guard down. I leaned against the door, my chest tight, feeling every ounce of the hurt she had caused me. But I wasn't going to let it break me. I couldn't forgive what she did to me, and I wasn't going to let her back into my life, no matter how many apologies she had. The following day I decided to go out, get some air, and try to clear my head. I met up with a few friends at a local bar, trying to forget the mess my life had become, even if just for a little while. I needed the distraction, and they were more than willing to provide it. We were sitting around a booth, laughing, talking about anything and everything, when I looked up and saw them. Ashley and James. They were standing at the entrance of the bar looking right at me. I could see the regret in their eyes, but all I felt was rage and disgust. Before I could get up, they were walking toward me. "David, please, we need to talk," Ashley said, her voice shaking as she stood in front of me. I couldn't believe they had the audacity to show up like this, to approach me after everything. I was done. I had no more words left for them. "Talk? There's nothing left to say, Ashley," I said, my tone icy, as I stood up from the table, staring them both down. "You made your choice, both of you, and now you have to live with it." James opened his mouth, but I cut him off before he could say anything. "No, don't even try to explain. I'm done with you. I'm done with both of you." Ashley's face crumpled and I could see her eyes filling with tears again, but I wasn't moved. I couldn't be. "You don't get to come back into my life, Ashley. You don't get to ask for a second chance after you destroyed everything we had," I said, my voice cold and final. "And you," I turned to James, "you're nothing more than a traitor, my best friend, and you slept with her. You both betrayed me, and I won't let either of you back in." James didn't say anything, just stood there looking ashamed, but I didn't care anymore. "I don't want to hear from either of you again. Don't call me, don't text me, don't come looking for me. We are done, and that's final." With that, I turned and walked away, leaving them standing there in the middle of the bar. As I walked out, I could hear Ashley calling my name, but I didn't stop. I wasn't going to let them drag me back into the mess they'd created. Eventually, my leave ended, and I had to go back. The betrayal still stung, but I had no choice but to keep moving forward. Slowly, the pain faded enough to breathe again, though the scars would stay with me for a long time. I sold the house, packed up my life, and moved to a new city far away from them. I also heard through mutual friends that Ashley and James eventually got together, but that relationship didn't last. They both moved on as far as I knew, but I never saw either of them again. I wasn't the same, and trusting people again wasn't easy. But I kept going, one step at a time, trying to rebuild what had been broken. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Thank you for watching.